Have you guys ever seen those funny Geico commercials with the cavemen? You know, and every time they think they're cool, they walk up somewhere, and next thing you know, it's like there's a billboard that says, "So simple, even a caveman can do it," and they just feel so like humiliated and dissed that they just walk away in shame. You know, that's kind of how like being an Arab feels sometimes.
The French have a very interesting saying. They say, whoever wants to drown their dog, pretend that he has a rabies. That's why they're drowning the dog. That's what I feel the imperialist establishment is doing or trying to do to the Muslim.
How do I feel about Arabs and Muslims portrayed in the media? I don't like it at all, to tell you the truth.
How does it feel, post 9/11, to be a Muslim American? I told him it feels a little bit like being a German Jew right before World War II. You wonder, you know, should you just run away someplace and hide? Because it's become so thick with fear.
In the sense of Muhammad, he raised a great civilization, his teachings, all over the world, and it's celebrated all over the world. Now, unfortunately, in some cases, people misunderstand it and have an antagonism toward Islam. But really, Islam is one of the greatest religions that have come.
So what happens when our human rights are taken for granted and the media tend to focus us more on fear than on the rule of law, like what happened after the terrible 9/11 atrocities? What happens, those were used as an excuse to demonize and to make people fearful about the average Muslim, and especially those who are visibly Muslim, who are wearing, for women wearing the hijab, or for men who, you know, who look visibly Muslim with a beard and maybe some kind of a headdress. And what's happened is that we're falsely giving people, average Americans, this false choice of either you have security, but then you have to forget about human rights.
You have a sense that there's something unusual or something wrong with that faith. A shadow's cast on it, or the ignore it and it'll go away syndrome will be reflected towards it.
I feel the media is complicit, unfortunately. Most of our mainstream media, the large corporations, are extremely, they're in the forefront. They're not just complicit, they're in the forefront of this agenda of destroying, first creating an enemy which doesn't exist. So now Islam is the big threat, supposedly. And then using all the demonization, all the stereotypes, all the lies and distortions about Islam and about Muslims to say, aha, now we need to go and act upon it.
I think politics in and of itself has its tendrils into everything, including religion.
The problem with the amount of the history of horrible media regarding Arabs is that we're just basically a bunch of backwards idiots that don't care if our countries are bombed and destroyed. We don't care if, you know, our children go out and blow themselves up, or, you know, we're just that backwards and so ignorant.
They're accusing us of being rabid. Why? So they can feel legitimate about killing and destroying us. When you go to a country like Iraq, which has never done anything to America, and you destroy it and you commit genocide. I mean, we're talking about a couple of million people dead, millions displaced, tortured, abused, raped. All of that in the name of what? In the name of bringing democracy, because these people are so supposedly so backward and so dangerous to us that we need to go and do this. That's one example. Palestine is another example. It's a very handy tool to pretend that one people or another just is inherently violent, inherently dangerous, so that we can justify our greedy pursuits of going and grabbing their resources.
My head's always leaned toward values and some of the customs and the principles of Islam. I was playing music at an Islamic nikah, which is a wedding, and I heard the call to the adhan, and that's calling people to prayer. And it was the first time I heard the call in that kind of environment, and it was so beautiful that I just wanted to hear that again.
You know, los moros, the blacks, you know, that came in, spread basically ideas of equality, spread ideas of science, spread ideas of, you know, musical philosophies and poetry. And I mean, science flourished, and not only that, religious tolerance flourished as well. And the music really, really reflects that, because the poetry of those times has had such a huge impact on just about every single culture in the Western and Eastern world, I'd say.
I know some great artists who are Muslims, particularly in creative jazz. And they have always had a piety about whatever they involve themselves. In other words, it's a devotion to them, or attitude of prayer, whether they're painting or drawing or making music.
I'm a Palestinian-American producer, composer, and MC, you know, just musician, just tripped out musician. Musically, you had all the different instruments that came with all these different conquests and different, you know, movements of peoples, and they were spread across all over the place. As a Palestinian Christian, I've had the opportunity to understand, unlike Western Christians, you see what I mean? I've had the opportunity to understand Islam and even have intimate knowledge of it and an intimate love for it, because if I wasn't born a Christian, I'd probably be a Muslim.
I'm a sculptor and a political cartoonist. My reason to do cartooning and art and fine art was to try to, in my own small way, try to rectify that terrible, grotesque depiction of Muslims in the media. And I've used the humor, which is one of the best ways, because once you make someone laugh, he or she is more apt to actually think of what you're saying.
When you have something like Islam, which does stress peace and it does stress equality, and the interesting thing about Islam in relationship to that is that it's justice-oriented.
A year ago or so, when my new book came out, which is called Mission Accomplished, making fun of the George Bush administration, I thought, well, it's a presidential campaign. I'm going to just put on my fez and go out there and pretend I'm running for president. But I thought, why the heck, why not? I was always a fan of Dr. Seuss. People who know those stories, there's the cat in the hat, that famous character. So I thought I'd be the Prez in the fez. So many terrible things have happened that are not deeply ingrained in people's consciousness, and that's very dangerous. Another parallel is what happened to the Japanese Americans. They were all thrown into jail, basically, around World War II, just for being who they are. They hadn't done anything. They're Americans like everybody else. And worse things have happened, of course, for people who know our history, the history of genocide of the Native Americans, history of slavery, which is another form of genocide.
My identity, how it was formed within my family, I guess what I've taken from that is just generally to treat people how you want to be treated, and to respect others.
One of the things that the Quran encourages is to go and get to know other people and blend with other people, because everything really is one. Since I've been practicing Islam, I find that the more I understand the source of my practice, the more I can accomplish those other things that I do, which may be the creative things you were talking about. For example, my music. My purpose is to demonstrate that excellence that Adam came with and it was lost throughout the years, and we're trying to get back to. So not just me, but humanity.